Hello everyone, my name is Randall and welcome to this HTML tutorial video. In this video, we'll be looking at an introduction to HTML. We will be looking at what HTML is, what it stands for, what it is used for, and a few HTML tags to get you started. First of all, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML or Hypertext Markup Language can be thought of as a programming language. It isn't a true programming language because it is only used to place text, images, and other contents on a web page. It is not used to perform any calculations or anything which a true programming language is used for. But it is a great starter for programming, and it is the foundation of almost any page you visit on your browser. So many websites or web pages that you've seen actually is founded by these HTML languages. HTML describes the structure of web pages using markup. Those are languages that are designed for the processing, definition, and representation of text. HTML elements are the building blocks of HTML pages, and these elements are represented by tags. HTML tags are labeled pieces of content such as heading, paragraph, table, and so on. Now, browsers do not display HTML tags, but they use them to render the content of the page. Now, before we start, it is important to talk about software for creating HTML. Now, we recommend, if you're using a Windows computer, to use the default Notepad program or application. If you're using a Mac, we do not recommend using the default text editor, as there are issues with editing HTML files with that program. But what we do recommend is going to the App Store and downloading text editor applications. An example, and the one that we'll be using in this video, is a free text editor called Text Wrangler, which is found in the App Store. Another recommendation for Mac users is an application called TextMate. Okay, so first of all, what does HTML look like? On the left-hand side is a basic HTML file. As you can see, this file is made up of HTML tags, and each tag does something different. In this video, we'll be looking at the tags that are shown here and what they do. Now, if you save this file as a .html, when you double click that file, it will look like this as an output on the right hand side. So this file will output this when saved as a .html. Now, it's good practice to format your HTML file in this way. As you can see, as you go inside each tag, you tab in so that the tags go more towards the right. This is helpful because it makes our file look more structured, professional, and clear. So make sure you get into that habit of tabbing in tags that are inside. Okay, so the first few tags that we'll be looking at is the doc type HTML and the HTML tag. Now, what I recommend is that you open your text editors and type in these two tags. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do this with you. So open up your HTML open up your text editor app. So mine is Text Wrangler. Ignore this for now. Okay. So open up your Text Wrangler. Oh, this is open up. But all you want to do is you want to write those two tags, as you can see here. So you should have something like this. Okay. Now it's important to note that the doc type here is all in uppercase, and in front of it is this exclamation mark. So you want to make sure that it looks exactly the same there with all uppercase letters. Another thing that is important to note is that each HTML element or tag begins with a less than symbol and ends with a more than symbol, as you can see with these two tags here. Now, different to the doc type HTML tag, this tag here, the HTML tag comes in a pair. So as you can see, I've got HTML there, but then I've got HTML here, but they're different because this one has a forward slash in front of it. Now, the reason being is that most HTML tags come in pairs. So as you can see here, the HTML tags that we've looked at, HTML, head, title, body, H1, which stands for heading, P, which stands for paragraph, italic and bold, which we'll be looking at in the next video. These tags all come in pairs, and they won't work properly unless you have each pair. You've got the start tag, so these on the left are all start tags, and you've got the end tag, these all on the right are end tags. Now, as you can see, the difference between the two is simply that the end tag will have this forward slash after the less than symbol. The reason for having pairs is that we're sort of using them as containers. We're saying that the HTML tag will start here. Anything in the middle is inside this tag, and we denote the end of the HTML tag by using that symbol. So an example, let's say we are writing a heading. We want to say that the text that I'm writing between H1, the H1 start tag, and this H1 end tag are all text for my heading. And the same thing with paragraph. To separate between the two, a heading and a paragraph, we put the text that are headings in between here, and we put the text that are paragraphs in between here. So think of them as containers. You're saying this is the start of my tag, and this is where it will end. Well, better yet, think of them as starting and ending points. Now, if I just show you quickly, which I nearly forgot to do, if I show you quickly what this basic program will look like once we save it. So currently, your program should be saved as a .txt. The reason being is we're using a text editor. Once you've written this, you want to go and save. You want to click File. You want to click File, Save As. You want to choose where you want to save your file. So I'm just going to save my file. Ignore this for now. I'm just going to save my file in desktop. I'm going to call it my first HTML. Now, the important part when you're saving your file is to end it with a .html. This .html is telling the program that it should be saved as a HTML file. If it was a .txt, then we're saying that it's going to be saved as a text file. But we don't want to do that. We want to save it as a .html. If you click save, hopefully it will be saved to your desktop, as you can see mine here. Now sometimes when you save it as a .html, the icon may look like a web browser, let's say Google Chrome or Safari, but mine is just saying HTML. That's fine. But when you double click on that saved program, as you can see, it opens up your default web browser and it shows you what this HTML file will look like in a web browser. So as you can see, if I break down the code, all we're doing there is we're creating a title called My First HTML inside the body, inside the head, and in the body we're adding a heading, and then we're adding a simple paragraph. Now ignore this part here for now. We'll talk about that later on. But if I reopen my saved HTML file, as you can see, the title is the name of the tab. So as you can see, I've got a new tab, but my first HTML is the name. So that's what the title does. It gives the tab, the web browser, a name. And then the h1 tag creates a heading so that it's a text in a larger size, and it's also bolded. And then you've got a paragraph that looks like that. Okay. Now it's important to know that if you want to, let's say you've closed this down, okay, you've essentially sort of lost your .txt file. If you double click on your HTML file, as you can see, it will always load it up as a HTML file. We can always see the output. So how do we go back so that we can edit the tags? What you want to do is you want to right click, select open with, and choose your text editor. So remember, we're using Text Wrangler for this tutorial. And as you can see now, different from before, we're actually able to see the HTML tags and change and update them. So I'm going to change the title to say changed HTML. I'm going to change the heading to say the start of a journey. I'm going to change the paragraph to say once upon a time, ... Now if I go to file, save as, save it to the same location, I can replace the old HTML file so that now when I double click on it, I can see the new changes that I've made. Okay. Now it's important to note that as you can see, we can see the changes to the title, changes to the heading and the paragraph, but you don't really see anything displayed for the head or the body. These are just tags to denote what will be inside them. So the body should contain tags for the content of your web page, whereas the head tag, if I go down to the slide here, will contain information such as the title of the document, styles, which we'll be looking at the last video for this pack, and meta information such as who is the creator, what version is the HTML on, is it the latest version or an old version, date created, all those informations that wouldn't necessarily be displayed but is on the HTML file for other programmers or developers to see. Then you've got the title tag, which defines the title in the browser toolbar. This is the title that you see when you save a web page as a favorite or a bookmark. And then you've got the body, which defines the content of the document. Okay, so we've looked at headings, we've used h1, But headings actually have different other tags such as H1 to H6. As you can see here, H1 to H6, all it does is changes the size of the text. So H6 being the very smallest, H1 the largest. And this is useful for subheadings. So what does this look like as a .txt file? It looks like this. Okay, you got these two tags, which is always there, and you're saying that the content of your document or your web page is going to have all of these headings, H1 to H6. Now, using this example, so you may pause here. Using this example, I would like you to maybe pause the video and create your very own iTest program. So using H1 to H6 tags, I want you to create your very own iTest, which looks like this. So you may want to pause the video now and try it yourself. Hopefully you were able to do that and you were able to create your very own iTest using H1 to H6 tags. If I were to show you what it should look like, okay, so you should have a HTML document that contains these HTML tags. And then next thing we want to talk about is paragraphs. The P tag defines a paragraph. Browsers automatically add some space or line spacing before, after, and each tag. So an example, at the bottom here, we've made a haiku. And a haiku is essentially, one example of a haiku is 5 syllables for the first line, 7 syllables for the second line, and then 5 syllables for the third line. So as you can see, haikus are easy, but sometimes they don't make sense. Refrigerators. So that is a form of a haiku. And to create this, we've used 3 paragraph tags. One tag here, one tag there, and one tag here. Now, as we've said, browsers automatically add some space before and after each tag. So each paragraph tag has spacing above it and below it. And that is why there are gaps in between, as you can see. The paragraph tag does this automatically so that you can clearly show that they are separate paragraphs. Now, as an activity, I want you to create your own haiku using paragraph tag. So this is an example of a haiku. Using paragraphs tag, I want you to create your own. You may pause the video and do this yourself now. So hopefully you were able to do that. You're able to create your own haikus. To create your own using paragraphs, hopefully you should have something that looks like this. Okay, as you can see, we've used 3 paragraph tags, and that is why it looks like that there. Right, so before we end this video, the last thing I want to talk about is commenting. So at the beginning, I showed you a basic HTML file, which has this insert comments here. Now, commenting in HTML is done by surrounding the desired comments with less than, exclamation mark, hyphen, hyphen, or the dash, dash, and then whatever text you want in between, and then dash, dash, more than symbol, as you can see there. Now, these comments are only seen by those who are editing the HTML file. So these comments are actually not shown as an output in your web page. They're only for people who are developing or programming or coding your file or changing your file. You can only see it in your .txt files. Comments are used to notify other individuals who will be using your HTML file about any important information regarding the code. So you could have comments to say the body of the HTML file starts here, and then it will then show them that from here to there will be all the HTML tags for the content of your program. Right, so hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Look out for the next tutorial soon, where we'll be looking at more HTML tags that you can use. I think in particular, we will be looking at HTML tags, which will allow you to link to other websites or reference other websites. For example, if you were to click on a piece of text, it will take you to a different website.